Remember the wilderness years? The years between 18 and 25, the years of hope and longing when everything was new. Do you remember the worry of being excluded, of not fitting in, of not being in some way a bona fide LGBT gay?
Hi, my name is Thierry Alexandre, and I'm a performance artist. I was born in France, and I came to the United Kingdom 20 years ago to find love, essentially.
My name's Howell, which even my dad couldn't spell on the birth certificate. I was conceived in the era of punk and born in the winter of discontent. I grew up in West Wales in a town that was almost at the end of the railway line. I was always the oddball at school. It didn't help that I had the big plastic NHS glasses that you get when you're 8 years old. And of course I constantly broke them, so there's always sellotape on the side holding them together.
I came from the north of England, a small mill town. I knew from about so high that, that I didn't know anyone like me, and no one I knew anyone like me. My family didn't know anyone like me.
I remember as a little kid, my fascination was incredibly beautiful women. Perhaps a part of me wanted to be an incredibly beautiful woman. I didn't want to conform. I had no interest in either being a full woman or being a full man in terms of what people see. That was just too limiting, really.
The two principal women who brought me up died within a year of each other back in 87 and 86. And what went from being a very warm, kind of full family house went to being quite a closed one. And it had significant implications for my mental health. Roughly when I was 8 years old, which coincided with Section 28, I remember being told as we were going down to the local Baptist church for the Harvest Festival that I shouldn't hold another boy's hand because that would mean I was gay. And that's the real first piece of homophobia I ever had.
During the 70s, if you were gay, if you worked in a school, you would lose your job because you were considered a danger to children. And a group of people like Peter Tatchell, Lisa Powers, they set up an organisation called Gay Liberation Front, happened in the States and then came over here, where people were proud to be gay. And I was in a humanist group and the campaign for homosexual equality.
I came out in the school sixth form openly because I wanted to change attitudes. My parents come from a non-conformist Baptist background, and that summer I decided to drop the Baptism and keep the non-conformism. I remember one of the bullies going like, "Ugh, Hull's gay," and my response was, "So what?"
18 to 25, the highest statistic of disenchantment and depression, of death by suicide and misadventure within our community. That sort of age, people leave home and are making new starts in their lives and are very open to possibilities. Do you remember the lost years? The sex, the drink, the drugs, the clubs. So many new faces, new places, good, bad, and ugly. Those who can remember it have passed through it. Those who can remember it survived it. Some don't.
I am no longer isolated, but it's been a very lonely journey. I mean, I come from a small village in France, and arriving here, the scene which is immediately available to us is what, is classified as the gay scene, which indulged heavily into alcohol and drugs, and I didn't fit into that, it was a great disappointment because I'd spent my teenage childhood and teenagehood waiting to meet the gays and to be, part of a community. And I arrived here and I realized that I wasn't part of a community. And then I experimented. I played around with costume and drag transformation makeup. My sense of humor was greater. My ability to laugh and to dance and to explore and to entertain and to enjoy was, exploding completely when I was, in costume and in full makeup. In everyday life, I was unable to be those things.
Up until 2010, I spent most of my life thinking I should have become just in the statistics of a teen gay suicide and killed myself when I was 15, and regretting that I didn't. After university, I fell into election campaigning for the Lib Dems. I did 12 elections in 4 years. Some really made me, some really destroyed me. And then finally, on a by-election that would have made my name, I caught HIV. They very quickly found that there were 3 tumours in my brain. 2 were treated in about 6 weeks. The other tumour turned out to be a very rare form of lymphoma, which I only found out 4 years after it was diagnosed, that it is extremely rare and predominantly fatal, and very few people have made as well as recovery as I have, which was a bit of a head turner. I had to spend most of the day trying to think why, and the only answer I could come back with was why not, because, and telling myself, no, you're not divine.
The kind of discrimination that one experiences as a non-conforming individual, for me, has included having bottles thrown at me, being sworn at, shouted at, threatened. I have been beaten up and strangled several times. I've been slapped. I've been punched, this is something which unfortunately is a reality still today for people who refuse to who refuse to give in.
When you grow up in that situation where you are normal, where religious figures and politicians decry you, when the Prime Minister of the day basically pushes through a piece of legislation that there are no such things as homosexual relationships, at the time when there's a massive plague going on and a whole generation of gay men have died hideous and horrible deaths, you're told you're disgusting. The impact of that on a child, never mind an adult, is extremely damaging.
If you were in any kind of minority group, you kept very quiet and kept your head down, or you just got beat up. It doesn't have to be that way. Those can be happy, carefree days, celebrating all that is great, good and gay, supported by love and wisdom. I did have a hunch that in London I would meet some people like me, and I did, and we clung to each other. And it was like us against the world, I moved into my family.
I made a decision when I had a nervous breakdown about 15 years ago that I would get to the bottom of what it is about me, which is in so much pain. After years and years of doing psychotherapy, doing retreats, spiritual development, art therapy, all sorts of manners, I realized that I was unhappy as a boy, which made complete sense because that went back to my childhood and to my refusal of wearing boys' clothes but still being forced to do so. And, you know, there was a part of me that still wanted to please my parents, although I was a fully grown adult. I hadn't actually broken out of what seemed acceptable.
There are loose estimates about 1 in 4 people in their lives will have mental health problems, but that's nonsense, because I think everyone in their life will have it, and I think you have a right to be sad. If you have a young child who turns around and tells you, I think I'm gay, I don't think I'm the right gender and stuff, what you should do is support them and encourage them and educate them in the reality so they can keep themselves safe. The greatest thing you can give a person is love.
As a non-conforming genderqueer individual, having fought so much for the right to be myself, my creative practice is now just an expression of who I am. I'm not particularly desperate to make people understand a thing or the other. I just want to inspire people to find a way to find themselves again and to be themselves in the world.
Let us light a beacon in our hearts to guide those young men and women, our sons and daughters, the next generation, who now navigate the wilderness years.